Unreachable Star, for my mother, Julie Griffin Ward. Excerpt from The House of Living Faith, Search for the Prophet Within, by Julie Griffin, read by the author. She missed the feeling of him, his eyes that bore into her, his arms pulling her close, and the sound of his overly loud breath escaping from his perfectly warm, wet lips. The sweet memory of the smell of his sweat still filled her nose, looming intoxicating and debilitating. She fed him ice from painted fingertips, knowing that the ice, only cold for a moment, was a warm, empty promise that would neither quench his thirst nor satisfy his need. The sensation of fingers in his mouth, her unveiled, overt display of yearning, were both tests and remembrances of what it would be like were she to give wings to desire. The holy, unholy battle she fought inside herself enveloped her, holding her up, holding her down, preventing her from escaping his planet. Like Eve, a temptress offering only a taste of forbidden fruit. Like Christ, he was her servant and master. Yet no guilt, no sorrow appeared or lingered in that moment, for she believed it might be her last day. And for had it been so, the regret in holding back, in not tasting his mouth, in not feeling his lips pressed against hers, would have reigned eternal. She knew a stiff breeze could deliver her to the sky at any moment, for her heart and mind had both shown signs of failing. Many had died young before her, and she herself had crossed over young many times before. Every day became a gift to be celebrated, each sensation more tangible, each sound more resounding, each butterfly more sacred, each flower bursting with added color. Each breath she took brought her closer to her mortality and immortality. She could see the look in his eyes, the wanting, the desire. Even if he looked at other women, it was her reflection that lingered in his eyes, from olden times and faraway places, the reflection of a time when love was not forbidden. Those memories of love's sweet ecstasy lingered in their souls and continued to kiss her every cell, even those tightly locked. He always showed that look when no one else was about, that made her ache and rejoice, whilst lost and adrift in his shining, sea-lit, watercolored eyes. How could a look hold such power, so as to make her forget her own name, her place, and her position? Men looked at her longingly at many times and in many places, but she'd not returned their gaze, even at times when it would have been uncomplicated to be locked in the eyes and arms of adoration. In a moment, right and wrong had become as blurry as her sight, her will weaker than her heart, her actions primal, responsive, reactive. He'd spoken to her without knowing his own words, things said in a trance that he knew from times shared in past dimensions. Even things he said aloud in front of others were unintentionally and rivetingly revealing. Yet much that had been recalled by his unconscious, semi-sleeping mind needed to remain a whisper only in the ears of those who heard his inner self's unwitting calls from the past. Words came easily from his memories, like rainbow trouts breaking through the water's surface and reflection to kiss the air and sky. He'd spoken boldly from mesmeric spells that temporarily held custody of his past, and even though she'd released him from his trance, he'd freely lingered. Had she accidentally stolen his secrets, or did part of him want her to know? A private glance between them could throw them together back in time and reveal more secrets from the depths of their seas. Secrets that were not secrets. Agenda-free occurrences assumed their own flow in divine order, for the only strings being pulled were cords connecting their pasts. Yet she could not reveal such events, not to her teacher, not to her student, not to all the things he was and had been to her. The God inside him already knew his deeper truths, or those telling words would not have escaped his lips and taken on such volume. His words and eyes made his vulnerability impossible not to hear, and plain to see in her fields of vision, both past and present. She had put nothing into action that prompted him to keep remembering, to keep reporting so openly. He'd become a slave to his unconscious memories, and his lips and tongues had served two unwitting masters. Those words, once outside his mind's bottle, played a song in her ears that she could neither turn off or turn down. Alas, she could not speak to him of his words, could not answer his distant call, yet in her silence her heart echoed them loudly, even to those who could not hear its beating. Memories waltzed in from a deeper place, a place in which they had danced before in many different ways, costumed and uncostumed, masked and unmasked, freely and hidden. At times when both the moon and the sun shone at once, amidst the brightest twinkling stars, on land and in the sky. She'd already crossed lines that she'd never crossed, fed a forbidden fire kindling, taught illicit things in all too telling ways. So why did her soul only rejoice in breaches, in rules of her own making? Her mind's replay button enabled her to relive the feelings of their tongues dancing, the soft, wet heat of his mouth, and the feeling of his weight on her body. She tried to freeze those moments in time, but instead they became burned inside her mind and body, and especially in her mouth. Combined flavors so delicious could only taste better with more stewing, only become perfected with more stirring, yet had it once been an exquisite appetizer and the tastiest of desserts. Alas, 15 courses in between, and still she would have hungered. As others came and went, they remained lost in their bounty, lost in each other's mouths and the feeling of their hands and bodies touching. In that all too brief moment, it did not matter who saw their feast, or if the wind had revealed their banquet to passers-by. The only thing that mattered was the relief in finally just giving into it, giving over to it, having it, feeding and fueling each other's hunger and needs. Like school children playing an adult game, there were no winners or losers, only those scorching, flavor-filled moments that played out on that warm and clear August morn that marked the beginning of her 37th year, a day she felt young and alive. Right or wrong, no matter where he is, no matter how far apart, or whatever the reason is for the distance, she still stirs for him, no matter how hard she works to push the feelings away. The unplanned appetizers shared under the blanket of the scorching summer sky left her starving. Alas, there were some appetites that could not be satiated, some fires that could not be extinguished. Their hunger had already proven thrice to be everlasting, even in dimensions where banquets were not forbidden, even when they could freely dine on passion's fruit. She knew their appetites for each other had before, and would again, transcend death. In this dimension, the sweetest fruits would remain unpicked, lingering, self-evident upon branches of their trees, continuing to drink both the sun and the rain. For neither the land nor the sky can release one another. Yet the sun and moon can only smile upon each other in brief moments, and from safe distances, so they serve each other but do not collide. Hitherto they both linger glowing, drenched in longing's ecstasy and pain. So many pensive thoughts she struggles but fails to relinquish. For some unreachable star awaits her in both near and distant galaxies that will always be shining and shall always reappear, no matter how tightly she closes her eyes, and no matter how she struggles not to see or to long for the sky. The sky, the moon, the sun, and its brightest star still calls to her.